one of the immediate responses to first wave feminism, and by the way, those things that we just talked about for voting and talking about how there would be a representative head like the male, there were women, and we'll talk about them in just a second, there were women who held to that as well. It wasn't just like the battle lines were not drawn between male and female. That's not true. That's a fallacy. There were actually women who were like, okay, well, we've got this Industrial Revolution problem. Now, what are we going to do? They weren't going to undo the Industrial Revolution, but they tried to come up with solutions to promote the woman in the home as a mother. They were called the maternalists. It was a large group. So
Is that a good idea?
Welcome to the Family Pulpit Podcast, and this is episode 11. We're up to Feminism Part 2.
Wait a minute. Could you call this 12? I thought the last one was 12.
I have no idea, but I thought it was 10. No, I uploaded it as 10.
Okay.
This is episode 11,
11,
and we are on Part 2 of Feminism.
Yes.
You want to tell the audience why we're doing feminism?
Yes, so we have a short on this, but previously I stated that we were talking about these 4 things, and it was Plato's influence on modern society.
On the institutional church. But yeah, he did have a big influence on modern society.
That's what I interpreted.
I got you. Yeah, yeah.
And then,
that's where we get kind of that secular, sacred divide with regards to work.
Yeah, Industrial Revolution and then compulsory education. Now we're on feminism. So what I kind of did is Plato was the spark, Industrial Revolution was the tinder, and then feminism and compulsory were the ashes.
Yeah, that's good.
Talked about that in a short.
That's a good summary. And basically what we're looking at then is we are trying to work our way through from the beginning, literally the beginning, in the beginning, and seeing how God created man in his own image, and God gave him dignity by giving him worship. Work was to be combined with worship at the time. Sin fractured that relationship.
Yes.
Faith restores that worship relationship. Yep. But now we're downstream of all that in a post-fall society, and we're trying to figure out, what do we do? What are we supposed to do when all of the AI, the rise of the machines, etc., threaten to take over our jobs? And we're told that we won't need to work, we don't need to save money, we can live in this utopian society and just enjoy the fruits of the labor from the machines. What is it that man's supposed to do? And we're arguing on this podcast, is that man is dignified through the work that God has given him to do. Therefore, we weren't made to sit around and be lazy. Right? So in doing that, we've seen how work has been changed and modified by those 4 factors that you mentioned.
Yes.
And they've really been impacted along history by the Plato's influence of the sacred secular divide. The Industrial Revolution is, like you mentioned, it's the, what'd you say it was, the tinder?
Yes. No, it was one of the... No.
It was the tinder. It was the kindling that started all of this by fracturing the family. Setting up an industrialized society where families were moving from the farm.
Or if you want to be a true hillbilly, you could say it's the gasoline, the diesel.
Yeah, I would not recommend moving from the farm to the city, right?
Yeah.
Because they wanted a better quality of living. They wanted a better standard of life, and really that kind of backfired on them. And then I was thinking about this the other day, though, and we talked about this a little bit, maybe a week ago now, is that we're pointing out some of the negative influences that Plato and the Industrial Revolution had, and someone might be listening to go, well, you're going to deny all the modern technological advancements that the Industrial Revolution brought on, like medicines and computers.
I mean, you can't deny that the Game Boy Portable was legendary.
Is that life-changing?
It was life-changing.
I don't know that it was.
An entire generation. It brought us Pokemon. It brought us Mario Land. It brought us stinking Tetris, Zelda, everything.
Yeah, I'm not convinced by that, really.
The NES, the SNES, the PS4.
What I guess we would want to do then, to those who might be listening and say, well, they're just pointing out the negatives. They're anti-industrialists. Well, not really, but sorta. What we want to do is we want to look and see just how impactful that it was, and it was catastrophic.
You're forgetting that the Industrial Revolution also brought the Tylenol. Isn't there some form of Tylenol that kills you or something?
I don't know about that. They did have some restrictions that they placed on it recently.
Yeah, it was harmful. So
but
harmful
but what I think happened out of the Industrial Revolution is the impacts that it had on the family were so catastrophic. We haven't been able to recover from that. And feminism, it literally picks up on the Industrial Revolution. Like we talked about last time, kind of tracing I don't know, just a little bit of an overview of feminism, and then we looked at Great Britain. Remember the guy who came up with the coverture, kind of codified it?
Prussian dude.
The Blackstone guy. Remember you said because he invented the grill?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if he did or not, but do you remember how Blackstone codifies the coverture law? And coverture was simply a law that said that the woman would be under the headship of the male. And we went through some of the back and forth about how that could be abused. Then we walked up through First Wave Feminism. Do you remember talking about that at all? So First Wave Feminism.
It was like the voting thing, wasn't it?
Yes, it's marked by... You know what? I'm not really sure what it's called, suffrage, but it's the right to vote.
Can I say why, from our views that we've discussed on this podcast, that would be how would you call that? Fallacy.
Which part?
Why women should vote. The reason why is because
go ahead.
Early in life, they're under the coverture of their father.
Okay.
Using that, like the father would vote for the family.
Yeah, that's how it was.
Yes. The head of the family would vote for.
Right.
So, like in a family setting, what we would want is we would want the father, the children, Eenie and Miney. I love using those words.
Okay.
And then the mom.
Are you Mo? Oh, mom. The mom's Mo.
Mom's Mo.
No.
And then the father is like, okay, they kind of collective vote, but the father is the one who submits and then kind of overarches everything. So if the kid's like, let's vote for Donald Trump, and everybody else is like, no, nobody wants to vote for Donald Trump, then the dad
father
would be
was
like,
the
okay,
representative
let's go
vote.
Donald Trump.
That's sort of how it was, and I think in practice, it's not necessarily wrong because you would want your entire family to be on the same page. Like that's really what the heart of that would be about.
And
you know, like you wouldn't want division. So you think about it today, and I said this, and people probably heard the 1.75 people maybe that listen. Yeah. But if you heard it and you heard me say that a family is not a collection of individual parts, like they're a whole. They're not individuals. You know, like a family shouldn't function as just a bunch of individual parts. They need to function as a unity, like as a unified unit. So when they're concerning the vote, you wouldn't want a husband to be like, well, I'm going to do the exact opposite as my wife, and the wife's like, yeah, well, he's crazy, and I'm over here doing this. And then you may have 18-year-old kids who are eligible to vote, and they're like, both these guys are crazy. Like that's division. That's division in amongst the family.
So
Go ahead. No,
I had a statement last time where I said that it's kind of with the duty of the father to be like a just voter. Usually, I think in this case, will we go majority or will we go?
That's a good point. And I was actually thinking before you even said that what we're actually getting to here is the democratic principle, but it's a representative government. So in the family, the dad would be the representative head. And so what you're looking for is not necessarily a majority in the family per se. Now, some people might say, well, that's what we have today. Yeah, what you would want to have is a unanimous vote. Yeah. So this is why churches split too, by the way. They take the democratic principle, the democracy principle, to its logical conclusion, and they say, well, you know what? We believe in infant baptism on this side, and we believe in believers' baptism on this side. Well, which one has the majority? The infant baptism has the majority, so we're going to start our own. So we're going to start our First Presbyterian church on the corner, and we're going to leave the First Baptist church, and that's because it was a majority type rule. But what I think, how it was meant to function, even within the churches, which would be a collection of the families, is that you would work with one another to work back and forth through these issues. Not that you have a majority rule, but that you would have a unanimous decision. Yeah. Does that make sense? I'm probably stretching these principles way beyond the right to vote that we talked about, but this is just me. I'm thinking out loud on these things. I'm shooting from the hip here.
So I think that they could actually reduce the voting age from 18 to 12, I even think. Especially,
but if the father is the representative head, then it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was thinking if we were back in I was just reading who was Nikola Tesla, I think it was, and back in his day he was learning the Pythagorean theorem in the 6th grade at 12.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just thought that was cool, and he was able to do like a complex problem in his head. I could follow him, but then
Wait, bro, whoa.
he started doing square
Whoa,
roots.
wait. So what does Nikola Tesla have to do with what we were talking about in the right to vote?
Well, so what I was meaning is he was like a genius at like 12.
Okay.
And like he could do problems in his head, so I assumed like if you can learn the Pythagorean theorem
then
and
you
apply
could be
it
able
at
to
12,
vote.
then you can vote at 12.
Okay, I see. Yeah, all we're doing is just giving an overview of how things were. I mean, we're wrestling through that right now about like live right now about what that might look like. The other thing is that principle it might hold true, but then you also have to look and go, well, what about those families that may not have a male head? And so that's when I think the family head would be the one who's the representative vote, and it could be a mom, it could have been the daughter, it could have been
Oldest son.
whoever was there. Probably this is why a lot of people wanted to tie voting to property laws, would be my guess. So anyway, all of that aside, that was first wave feminism, and that leads us up to the responses to first wave feminism.
I do want to say one other thing
Yes,
before
sir.
we move on. I would
Yes,
just
sir.
like to say you could even go so far as to say that like autism, ADHD, those are all consequences of the Industrial Revolution. Because if you say Industrial Revolution brought medicines, and medicines brought vaccines, and then vaccines, which we have a theory that may have brought.
This sounds complicated.
My life is complicated.
You know what? I don't know. There are some consequences. Okay, so let's just give a short answer on this. There are unintended consequences to industrialization. So there would be things that happen as a result of pollution, as a result of environmental. Yes, that is absolutely true. There are diseases and there are issues and concerns that arise today from exposure to things that are in our atmosphere and environment. That is factually true. And those things are the direct result of industrialization. Yes. Now, what are they? I don't really know exactly what they might be.
I was just reading the Week Journal article that said that there was all kinds of trash on top of Mount Everest.
I've seen some photos of that. It's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I was like, dude, not even people on like regular campsites leave that much trash.
It is. Yeah, I've seen that. It's ridiculous.
What, did they just think nobody would ever go up there again? It'd be out of sight?
I don't know. Okay, so what we've got is we've got to have go over this discussion of some of the responses to the first wave feminism. Okay, so hang in there with me. If you have questions or comments, we'll jump in. But I want to be sure that we get some of these historical things laid out. Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the immediate responses to first wave feminism, and by the way, those things that we just talked about for voting and talking about how there would be a representative head like the male, there were women, and we're talking about them in just a second. There were women who held to that as well. It wasn't just like the battle lines were not drawn between male and female. That's not true. That's a fallacy. There were actually women who were like, okay, well, we've got this Industrial Revolution problem. Now, what are we going to do? They weren't going to undo the Industrial Revolution, but they tried to come up with solutions to promote the woman in the home as a mother. They were called the maternalists. It's a large group. So
Is that a good idea?
It is. They were sometimes called reformers. They were also sometimes called I don't know if they were called social feminists, but they were also sort of feminist, but they were in the respect that they were fighting for the woman's rights in the home.
You know what's
they didn't
funny?
think that they should be in the workplace.
I could even refer to myself or like anybody as a reformer if they change something, like because I'm
yes,
like
that's true.
against compulsory education, at least the way it is today, then I'm a reformer.
That's true. And there were educational reformers, and there still are today educational reformers. That's a good point. So the three unlikely groups that led the charge to attempt to restore male headship with respect to employment. So what that means is we talked about at the Industrial Revolution that the father, the mother, even the children were all out in the workplace.
Yeah.
And so there were three groups kind of coming at this from different angles. They were unlikely partnership. But they were the labor unions. Do you know what a labor union is?
Yes, I think I do.
So the labor unions, they get started in the mid to late 1800s, and they
Can I say
really
an example?
Yes.
So I was actually just reading another Who Was book the other day, and it was talking about a women's place where they spun cloth. And
Okay.
it was like 93,000 miles per day or something.
Whoa.
I don't know if it was per day, maybe a week, month, year. I don't know.
Okay.
But
Well,
it
that
was
changes
something.
things.
It was something.
Well, it was something. You are something. Did they talk about unions in that book?
Maybe. This
So-
was actually, I did skim Industrial Revolution in my Who Was World History book.
Oh, okay.
It did skim it.
Okay. So basically what the union did is they came along and they were a group that had money and you might even say influence and power. And what they tried to do is they tried to represent the worker to basically the employee to the employer.
Wait,
okay,
you
so
mean the colony union, the American colony union versus the Confederate?
no. A labor union. A union just means a group of people.
Oh, okay.
So it was the workers' union. So let's imagine if you have a couple guys who are seeing what's going on and the employees are getting abused. Remember, they were working long hours in bad conditions. So someone comes along and says, this is about enough of this. And it's going to take some money and influence, some money and power to step up against these big industrial titans and say, you know what, the way you're treating people is wrong. And I'll represent you so that they won't treat you this way anymore. So the labor unions, they come along and they argued that the women and children are actually driving the wages down. What that meant was, remember there was a battle that was brewing over the amount of pay that men were getting versus women. The reason was because a lot of times women had to take off to take care of their kids if something came up or if they were pregnant. The men were kind of stuck there to work longer hours and more physically demanding jobs. So oftentimes they were paid more. And so it made it appear like there was a skewing in between these salaries. Yeah. So the labor unions come along and they're saying, listen, the fact that you have women and children in the workplace, it's driving the wage down. And we can't get this male headship reestablished because the wages are too low.
Yeah.
So what they began fighting for, not just them, but these other two that were kind of in partnership with them, they started fighting for something called a family wage. And the family wage was going to be that there was one single wage or payment that was made to the head of the household, which would have been the father. And that would have been enough. That would have been enough to support the entire family.
This comes back to my responsibility principle where I said he wouldn't just go, oh, wait, this leads into the next thing. So this responsibility thing I came up with, you know how you had the male who had to be trusted for things like voting and money? Mm-hmm. Well, this actually leads us into one of our concepts where he said where they had to trust the man not to go and just spend it on beer.
That comes later.
Yeah.
That does come later in the 1900s. Yes,
now,
absolutely.
Also wanted to make a comment where it's actually kind of hilarious how the Industrial Revolution actually encouraged the family economy in the workplace because you had men, women, and children working in the same place at the same job.
Well, not exactly though. Remember, you actually said something a little bit different than that last time. That doesn't necessarily mean that all of them were in the same workplace. You might have the kids who were working in some textile industries.
Mines,
yes,
maybe.
in coal mines. You have men who were working heavy labor jobs. You had a lot of women who were working in like the textiles. We talked about an example of this during the Industrial Revolution where the women and the children were working together.
And then you've got Charlie Bucket's dad who works screwing toothpaste caps on toothpaste capsules.
Okay, I don't know who that is. But anyway, what they were arguing for was this family wage. You've heard of the minimum wage today, right?
Yes, I have. Oh, there's also a plea to expand the minimum wage.
There always is.
Courtesy of
so the minimum wage is arguing for a set wage from the bottom. The family wage was actually arguing for a set wage at the top. It's a little bit different functionality here. So
nice.
what they wanted to do is they wanted to kind of level the playing field so that a man would be the only one that had to be in the workplace and that his salary was going to be enough to take care of his wife and kids so that the woman didn't have to be in the workplace. She could be in the home.
This is an example of pre-post family public podcast. Pre-family podcast, I had no idea that the man was not supposed to be in the workplace alone. Post-family public podcast, I know that the man in the workplace is not right and that all four should be working. Did I just assume 2 kids?
You did assume, yeah. You assumed 2 kids. No, we'll get to that family economy maybe a little bit downstream, but what you're getting at is that God had ordered the family, yes, that the husband would take the lead in the workplace, but that workplace was prior to the Industrial Revolution, was in the home or adjacent to the home, and the family were all working parts of that. Yeah, together. That's the exact definition of when God says he makes a help meet or a help for Adam. They were complementary. It didn't mean that Adam was supposed to be off on his own, taking dominion and subduing the earth, and that Eve was over on her own, taking dominion and subduing the earth,
yes.
But that collectively together, as a family,
yes.
They were to be fruitful and multiply, take dominion and subdue the earth. Yeah, not individual parts, not individual doing your own thing. So that was that first group, was the labor unions. The second group this unlikely trio that were kind of fighting against the feminism of the day were the Catholics, the Roman Catholics. So Pope Leo wrote an encyclical, I believe it is, called Rerum Novarum. And in that's Latin, I think. Rerum Novarum, he argues that a just wage, quote, just wage, must be sufficient to support the worker, women and children. In other words, the worker being the husband or the male, and the women and children. So this just wage, a single salary for the male that would enable him to take care of himself, his wife, and the children.
Yes.
So women by nature were fitted for homework, not like, oh, dude, I got homework tonight, but like work in the home.
1 + 1 = 2.
What they call domestic duties, right?
Yes, but this is also... So wait, I just had an idea of family economy perfection. So you could have the mother cleaning the house, the father is... Wait, what's an indoor activity?
She's not just cleaning. That's not. Let's not reduce it to that.
I know, but
there's an
activities.
So what they were talking about there is the father is out earning the money, and the mother is home caring for the children, educating the children. She's kind of taking what the father had built with the house, and she's turning it into a home. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you have something else you wanted to add to the...
I was just thinking, like, maybe how you could have, like, all four working out in the farm.
Yes, that's exactly how it was prior to the Industrial Revolution. Exactly.
Or, like, on a winter day, maybe in the house, like, the kids are cleaning their rooms, dad's cleaning his...
Yeah, it's not just cleaning.
What else is
prior to the Industrial Revolution, the woman could have been making things in the home.
Would you like me to say the parents and the children all united in playing apples to apples?
It wasn't game time. They're
Maybe
trying to survive.
Maybe they were playing Mario Kart.
Okay, so that encyclical that the Pope comes out with was in 1891. And I also want to recommend here, there are people on social media and YouTube who are conservative evangelicals, and when I mention these names, they're going to go off and say, oh, you're just promoting the social Catholic teaching. I'm not Catholic, I'm Baptist.
I consider myself a moderate investor.
Oh, what does that have to do with anything?
You said conservative.
Oh my goodness. So these two guys, G.K. Chesterton and Belloc, they both pick up on what the Pope had written in Rerum Novarum, and they kind of build off of that. And so what they have, they come up with a system that's basically like 3 acres and a cow or something like that. You will hear people mischaracterize what they were trying to say, and what they were kind of pushing for was something called distributism. Now, I know that there's a guy on YouTube and on social media named Michael O'Fallon who constantly railing on distributism. But hang on just a second. Hang on. I'm going to pull you back in. I got to say this before we move on to the next point. He has a lot to say about distributism, and he's equating that with stakeholder capitalism, and that's not correct. What Chesterton and Belloc wanted to do was they wanted to restore the family economy. They wanted to bring things back home with, like you were talking about, the family farm. They said, look, if you had a couple acres and you have a cow, you have the central hub for an enterprise to start back at home. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's exactly the point you were making. They knew that the Industrial Revolution had happened and they couldn't undo it, but what they were trying to say was, listen, you have to have private property. You need to get yourself some land. And you need to then get yourself an animal so you can become more self-sustaining.
On the concept of Michael O'Fallon and investing, the two things that I disagree with Joel Salatin about are, he says we've replaced chicken with Lunchables. I'm going to say Lunchables are a lot better. And then
poison.
Second thing is, I disagree. So the first thing was, I disagree with him. He says Lunchables are bad.
Joel Salatin is your buddy.
They're better than good.
Okay.
I know, but I mean, I disagree with things with everybody. Like, I'm a disagreeant person.
We're going to post Joel Salatin's shout out to you. We need to put that on the YouTube. Yeah, our channel.
But that I do disagree with him about Lunchables. And then I also disagree with him. He said you should be investing in, like, I think it was something about farm related.
If Joel Salatin ever listens to this, he's going to hear you talking about him.
I know, but he said you should invest in, like, chickens instead of, like, actual portfolio stocks.
I think because he means the return is higher.
I know, but
all right, let's march on. I know. But anyway, I wanted to point out that you can read about Chesterton and Belloc in an author I've mentioned before, Alan C. Carlson, especially his book called Third Ways. It's an excellent book. He actually, his books, he goes over a lot of the stuff that we're talking about with feminism and how it impacted society. So anyway, the third group of unlikely trio that fought against this feminism were the social reformers, and I already mentioned them. They're the maternalists. They argued that women must be protected from the brutality of the factory conditions and that they should return to the home as the sacred place or the sacred space. The husband was to be the shield of his wife and family in the marketplace. That kind of sounds like the coverture. So you had a couple key influencers here, Jane Addams, Florence Kelly. They're arguing for a mother's pension. It was kind of like a pre-welfare. So what they were trying to say is it was good and bad. Yes, they wanted to get the women back in the home, but what they actually wanted to do is rather than the woman depending on the man, they wanted the women to depend on the state or the government. So it's kind of like, no, they try to take a bad situation and correct it, but it ends up making it worse. So they wanted this mother's pension to protect the women and children should the man die. Okay, we understand that. That's not a terrible idea. The idea became less of dependence on the man and more on the state. Labor laws then limited women's hours and dangerous jobs, which, by the way, this reminds me, did we talk about the marriage bars? So what would happen is if a woman was working a dangerous job and she got married, she could immediately be fired from that job because they felt that it would endanger her as a mother.
I thought by marriage laws you were meaning the or bars. You would mean like it's like internet bars, except the bars represent.
That's why I jumped in there fast. I'm like, his mom's running wild right now.
The bars represent the amount of love shared between the two.
Okay, so what we're going to do is let's do this. Since we went over the three main responses to First Wave Feminism, and the next one is kind of a separate unit, do you want to stop there? Stop right here?
Yeah.
So here, let me lead in for the next time and what we're going to talk about, because the next one, if you don't want to do the next one together, that's fine.
No, we're going to.
Okay, so what happens next?
True FTP, bro.
I know. This isn't Notes from the Pulpit.
NFTP.
This ain't NFTP, it's FPP.
Oh, also, clips from the pulpit. We dropped that the other day, so I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah, check out the YouTube channel. There's a lot of clips on there. We haven't been making shorts. We have been trying to make the longer clips from the videos every now and then.
Website. We got a new website.
thefamilypulpit.com, which is live and active with blogs.
You can check out Bella's short story over there. She completed that one.
Which one?
Didn't she?
No, she didn't post it yet.
Okay, we haven't posted it yet, but it's dropping soon.
She might be publishing that into a book. The one that she's working on now?
No, but she might put that on there. She could if she wants to. I also wrote a murder mystery short story. We're thinking about making another Family Pulpit branch website for short stories.
We could put a page on there for short stories or something. Yes. We'll think about that. We'll kick that around. But listen, next time, the next subject that comes up in this feminism move, this is just to show everybody how large feminism really was and the impact that it had. Did you hear that dog? What a crazy dog.
That's our new dog, Stella. Yay.
Oh, she cray.
She cray. She's more crazy than Taylor Swift.
Is the social gospel. It's the social gospel. I'll wrap us up if you want to tell her to be quiet. Listen, have you ever seen that movie called A Streetcar Named Desire? I know you haven't, but there's a part in there, the main actor, he goes, Stella!
Oh, yeah, you've shown me that clip about 10,000 times.
That's because of that crazy dog.
No, you've shown it me before that because I was singing the theme song to Stella and Sam.
I don't know. I had to watch that in high school. So what I was getting at is that because feminism is so large and had such a heavy influence on American culture.
Wait,
no. Oh. We ain't waiting just yet. You can jump in just a second. I just want to get this out. Stella interrupted me.
No, I didn't process.
It's
actually
the
had to
social
watch a movie
gospel.
For high school?
Multiple times we watched a movie in high school.
Why do you have to watch a movie for high school?
I don't know.
That's dumb.
They thought, well, this is going to go right along with the literature that we're looking at.
You might as well say, let's just watch Die Hard and then call it a year.
We did watch movies in junior high.
You learned so much stuff.
Too. I already told you some of those movies.
That movie could be classified as grammar.
Why did they make us watch Misery, the movie, on school time? A Stephen King movie. It was terrible. And then another movie, Tremors. Tremors has so much cuss words in it, I don't even know. They should have had our parents sign a waiver to sit in there and watch that on school time in the gym. What was happening? But anyway, we're wrapping this up. And the last point that not the last point, but the thing that's going to lead us in next time is the social gospel. So what it was I guess we can call them Christian. the kind of Christian response to the feminism and the Industrial Revolution. And this is where that great divide happens between liberalism and fundamentalism. Do you remember we talked about that all the way back to maybe episode 1 or 2? And this is where Luke Skywalker. That's right.
A liberal.
That's right.
We have a short on that. That was the very first
That was
short.
the very first short.
That was OG. Wait, maybe it was.
But this is all related. All of this stuff is related. This is why history, you just can't take a snippet in time. And you also can't just take the present day and just assume the status quo. You have to go back and walk through history and to see where did we come from this? How did we get here? How did we get to this?
That's copyrighted.
What?
Walk through history. So honestly, an example is like, you're like physics, chemistry. I know they're just physical science, but like how are they connected? Physics studies like that, the properties, not the properties.
What are you talking about?
How everything connects together. That was an example.
Of physics?
Yes.
You waited almost 30 minutes to try to get physics in there. I thought you were going to go there with Tesla. I really did. I thought here comes some sort of physics right here with Tesla. But then you waited until the end. What, everything ties back to physics?
He was a cool dude.
And everything ties back to physics?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, we had a long car discussion. We're going to have to turn this into an episode on polymath subjects. We were talking about polymath subjects, like if football classifies.
That's a good point. That, you know what that is? That's an unscripted. We'll save that for. Yeah, we'll do that. When we get this, listen, when we get this feminism wrapped up, we will do an unscripted, and we'll bring up that. We'll do a scripted, unscripted. That sounds great.
You always say that, like, I say random stuff in unscripted, and you're like, bro, it's not that unscripted, and so we should just start calling them scripted, unscripted.
I'd just like to point out that the last two unscripteds, the second unscripted was a mirror image of the first one, because you brought up the exact same topics from the first unscripted.
It was an Avengers.
That was hilarious.
Hey, 2027, Secret Wars.
Okay.
2026, Kang Dynasty.
I think we're done here. We'll pick up next time on Social Gospel.
Can I lead us out?
Lead us on out.
Thank you for watching the Family Pulpit Podcast.
They probably didn't watch us. They probably heard us.
Okay, thank you for listening to the Family Pulpit Podcast. That is a pet peeve of mine that we have been going on for 11 stinking episodes, and it sucks. I'm restarting. 3, 2, 1. Thank you for listening to the Family Pulpit Podcast. I'm listening to it again. Make sure to go check out our YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, basically anything you could possibly imagine listening to something on. I said watching. You can, on YouTube, we have some visual things like shorts and stuff, clips. We've animated those. We have some animated actual podcasts, so go check those out. We've got our website, all kinds of cool stuff there. Dropping some new stuff soon. See you on the next one. Adios!
Catch you on the next one.